Good morning and welcome to Lincoln Heights Christian Church. My name is Chris Rusin. I get the privilege of being lead pastor around here, and I also have the privilege of supporting and sponsoring two children along with through MOHI, Missions of Hope International. And you just met Virginia. We have two kids named Orest and Ryan, and they are amazing, and they are working hard over there. And you're going to hear a little bit how you can really just get involved in supporting these kids who are working so hard at school and just they're really having their lives be changed, not only with education and just the resources of course, food and love, but just this understanding of who Jesus is. And that's what MOHI does. And MOHI is short for Missions of Hope International. You'll hear more about them today. Before I talk to you all about that and about compassion, let's go ahead and pray, and we'll get into it. God, we love you. Thank you for being so good. Thank you for being so aware of who we are. God, thank you for being just so attentive and caring about us and wanting to connect with us. And God, we ask in the name of Jesus that you be here in a powerful way today. We don't want regular church. God, we want something special, something incredible, something to blow us away. And God, I believe that's your presence. So God, I ask you, please be here. Please speak through me. May people in here see you and not see me. May they hear you and not hear me. And may you have your way here today. In your name we pray. Amen. Let's talk about pie before we get into it, okay? Pie. Raise your hand if you had pie this past week at someone's house, your house, whatever. Good. You were blessed with a holiday involving pie. I typed in top 10 pies of North America, and this is what I got. The number 10 pie is spaghetti pie. Never heard of it, okay? Hope you've had it. Maybe it's cool. Next one, pastels pie in Puerto Rico. Sugar pie, number 8. Number 7, sweet potato pie. That's pretty good, all right? Number 6, cream pie. That's good. You have number 5, key lime pie. Heard of that? That's also wonderful. Number 4, pot pie. That's not marijuana pie, okay? That's chicken pot pie. It's under the pie category. It's sort of a warm pie. Number 3, pecan pie, which is great. Number 2, apple pie. And number 1 is pumpkin pie, okay? It is the bomb pie. It's wonderful. Depending on what pie stats you look on there, I did find a couple other ones that put apple pie number 1 instead of pumpkin pie. But still, top 2 pies, apple and pumpkin. Pumpkin's number 1 in my book. Now, if you asked me to, Chris, make me a pumpkin pie, I'd have to go get some ingredients. I would get sugar, salt, eggs, evaporated milk. I'd get some Pillsbury deep dish, crust, because I don't want to make the real stuff. And I get some pumpkin pie spice and then pumpkin mashed up in a can. That's how you make pumpkin pie. But the question I have for you today is, how do you make compassion pie? Compassion pie, to me, is going to be kind of a little fun way of how we discuss what compassion is. And compassion pie, we're talking about 3 ingredients to compassion pie. And this 3-part definition, we're going to dive into the Bible and see how Jesus exemplifies these 3 ingredients and how we are encouraged to also exemplify them as well. Turn your Bibles to Matthew 20, verse 29, verse 34. Now, the Bible is Old Testament, New Testament. First 4 books of the Bible are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They talk about the story of Jesus, his teachings, his life, just how he interacted with people. I love the first 4 books of the New Testament. It's my favorite books. Matthew talks about Jesus' earthly ministry. Now, of course, Jesus is, he's God in the flesh. He's always been around, but this part of seeing him in the flesh, we see specifically laid out in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And we see 3 years of him having his physical ministry, where he walked on the earth and he really displayed for us what God is all about, what God looks like, not like physically, but his characteristics, his heart, his love, his compassion. We see that played out in the whole ministry of Jesus, God in the flesh. And what's happening here as we read in Matthew 20, it's at the end of Jesus' 3-year ministry. He's on his way to Jerusalem. Last week we talked about Zacchaeus, how Jesus met Zacchaeus in the town of Jericho. He was on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus was, to die for all of humanity on the cross. Now, when Jesus died on the cross, it wasn't just for North Americans. It was for all people all over the world at all time, because all of them are his. He loves them all. And the reason why he died for all of us on the cross was to give us access to God now, not just when we die someday. And that's where the heaven is. Sometimes we simplify it too much. We have an elementary idea of what God's all about. It's all about heaven and hell. Lame. It's not about heaven and hell. It's about presence, being in God's presence. And what makes heaven heaven is God's presence, and what makes hell hell is the absence of God's presence. And many of us online or in the room are walking with God, walking without God, which would be a living hell, and walking with God, which is a living heaven. You and I, we get a living heaven now because of what Jesus did on the cross and through the grave 2,000 years ago. Amen? That's how good he is, and that's why it matters. Now, on his way to the cross, he stops through Jericho. Last week, he met Zacchaeus in Jericho on his way to the cross. This week, right after he meets Zacchaeus and hangs out with him, this story happens in Matthew. It says this: as Jesus and his disciples were leaving Jericho, a large crowd followed Jesus. Two blind men were sitting by the roadside, and when they heard that Jesus was going by, they shouted, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us." It was normal for a teacher or a rabbi to walk and talk, okay? As he's walking, he's just talking, encouraging people about who God is, what he's all about, and that's what Jesus is doing. And most likely he's walking, he has a large crowd around him. They probably already saw what he did with Zacchaeus and how he showed that guy some love, and nobody liked Zacchaeus. He was a totally outcast, and they're like, this guy's incredible. Jesus, we've heard him heal people. Let's see what he's going to do next. And as he's walking and talking, there are two guys on the side of the road who are blind. And they are crying out because they can pick up the other senses what's happening, that Jesus, the Messiah, is walking by. The healer of all healers is coming by, and maybe there's a chance that Jesus might just notice them and heal their eyes. And they cry out, "Lord, Son of David," which is code, or kind of a nickname of the Messiah, "have mercy on us. Have mercy. Would you please have mercy on us?" We're going to see in a moment how people around Jesus, as they're walking with him, are saying to these two blind men, "Shh, quiet. I can't hear the Messiah. Quiet." And they're rebuking Jesus. They want to listen to what Jesus has to hear, and they don't want to hear these guys yelling. But Jesus understands ministry in a different way than I think sometimes we get ourselves sucked into. He understands life in a bigger picture. He sees something just so much better than how we see things. And he understands these two people over here have value. Even though they're hurting and they're blind, they have value. See, I want you to know this little food for thought quote before we get into our ingredients. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And I love that quote from Theodore Roosevelt. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And sometimes what it is for you and I as believers, we get caught up into the crowd of religion. It's all of a sudden, I'm trying to hear Jesus. I'm trying to hear Jesus. Shh, I don't want to hear people who are hungry. I'm trying to read my Bible. I want to hear about Jesus. Shh, I don't want to hear people who are hurting and need help. I'm trying to hear Jesus. And all of a sudden you realize how backwards that is. Here you are trying to hear Jesus, and you read your Bible and pray all the time, be a good Christian person, but yet ignore that people are hurting around you. And here Jesus is trying to remind us of something, that we have to understand that a big reason why we're here to point people to Jesus, of course, to lead, love, and launch. But in the midst of that leading, in the midst of that loving and launching, we have to recognize that people are hurting and give them our attention and help them and show compassion. So what are the three ingredients of compassion? Number one, if you were making compassion pie, it's going to be found in this part of the passage in verse 31. The crowd rebuked the blind guys, told them to be quiet, but they shouted all the louder, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us." Here, Jesus is seeing these two blind guys get rebuked by the crowd. And I don't know, we don't know who specifically rebuked them. Maybe it was some of his disciples. We've seen them do that before. Just kind of rebuke people who are too loud and too needy and making sure everyone's focused on what Jesus is saying. And you see this play out, and Jesus got to be like, "Oh gosh, what are you guys doing? You have no idea. Why are you rebuking people who are hurting?" Here's the first ingredient. It has to do with this word empathy. Empathy. Do you know what empathy means? Do you understand what that is? Empathy is this. It's putting yourself in someone else's shoes. That's what empathy is. It's trying to imagine what it would be like to be a blind person. That's what empathy is, putting yourself in someone else's shoes. I would have no idea what it means to be a blind person. Thank God I haven't had that experience. I have had half that experience. When I was a ninth grader, I went to summer camp. I played volleyball all day long on the summer camp, and I ended up burning my eyeballs. I didn't know that. All I knew is that the next day when I woke up, I couldn't open my eyes. They were crusted. And I didn't know you could burn your eyeballs, okay? But I did. I burnt them, and they were so crusted, like sleeps in your eye, and I couldn't open up. So imagine waking up, but these things don't go up. You're like, what's going on? And I was totally like, it was scary. And I go to my counselor. I'm like, I can't see. He's like, you need Jesus, friend. No, I literally can't see. He's like, oh, really? He brings me out of the hospital. They get the gunk out of my ears, on my eyes and my ears. I get that too. So out of my eyes, and they clear it all out. And the doctor says, yeah, in the ER room, you burnt your eyeballs. I'm like, is that a thing? Did you wear glasses yesterday? I said, no, I wore no sunglasses. Like, yeah, you burnt them. So what you need to do is we're going to go ahead. You burnt one worse than the other, so we're going to give you a patch. Put a patch on me. Came back to camp, okay? Now, the rumor mill began, and it grew very quick. You know, everybody thought that what happened, they knew I left because my eyes were messed up. I came back a patch. They immediately thought that my eye had been removed from my skull, okay? So around camp, everybody's like, Chris's eye's gone. Yeah, he lost an eye. It's gone. Yeah, look at it. So I come up, I say, hey, guys, what's going on? Oh, hey, Chris, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm okay. They're all, did it hurt? I'm like, yeah, it kind of hurt, you know. And they're all, did they let you keep it? Keep what? Your eye? I'm like, no. Yeah, it's in my head still. They're like, oh, you don't have it in a jar? I'm like, no, I don't have my eye in a jar, you know. I was like, no. They're like, oh, I said, no, it's still in there. I have a patch on. And I had to walk around all camp that whole week with a patch on. I could not play any volleyball because if you don't understand, when you have one eye, at least you lose, for me, depth perception. I couldn't see anything. I mean, I didn't know where I was walking. I had to relearn things. Being blind would be horrible. I got just a half a taste of it for a few days. It would be such a challenge. But to put yourself in someone else's shoes, that's what empathy is to imagine what would it be like to be Virginia in this video that you saw. What would it be like to put yourself in her shoes? To live in this Mathare Valley. Let me show you this valley. This valley right here, it's the Mathare Valley. It's in Nairobi, Kenya. This valley is about 3 by 3 miles. In the 3 by 3 miles, like from here to Sunny Slope High School, okay? In that area, it would be 1 million people living. 1 million people, all crowded in. Now, they're not living in condos. They're living in shanties. It's horrible. And there's no plumbing. There's nothing. I mean, you see the sewage running through the streets, through people's areas where they live. Kids playing around that. There's no public school system, no public transportation. There's nothing. There's people trying to make a living here and there by selling maybe some fruit or whatever. And really, this mentality in the valley was, I mean, your best shot was to maybe grow up and sell some fruit. That was it. Because that's what happens to people when they get oppressed. When they get so wrapped up into believing that there's no hope. But yet, what happened about 20 years ago, 2 friends of mine, Mary and Wallace, come out. They are nationals in Kenya, and they grew up in Kenya, went to school, they came to know the Lord, and both of them were walking through the valley one time, and they're seeing all of the hurt. They're going, what can we do? So they started bringing food, they started bringing clothes, they started hanging out with the people, hanging out with the kids, just and praying the entire time. God, what can we do here? What can we do? I mean, they would see kids like this next picture and just see them and go, they need to be in school. They need to be having education. They need to be having some encouragement. You guys go to the next picture? Is that okay? I don't know if it came up yet. Next one. Anybody? No? Okay, there it is. All right. They see kids like this and go, hey, you know what? We need to help them, get them in school. But there were no schools. There's no way of getting them to schools. So they said, how about we do this? We're going to start a kindergarten with 50 kids. That's our goal. 50 kids, and we're going to see what God does with it. The reason why they did that is they put themselves in these people's shoes. And they said, I would never want my kid to be on the street like this. I would never want to have to deal with this type of hurt and pain or this kind of poverty. And speaking of poverty, just so you know, 36% of Kenya's population lives below the international poverty line. Oh, what's the international poverty line, Chris? Great question. It's when you make $1.90 a day. $1.90 is the international poverty line. And that's, guys, that works out to be a yearly salary of $693.50 a year. And for a family of 4, that means you would make $2,774 a year. So the poverty line in the U.S. right now is $12,700 per person, Or for a family of four, $26,000. We're going to be $34 a day for a United States citizen. Now, you go, okay, so these people are living trying to live on $1.90 a day, and I also know this, the shanties they live in, they get charged to live in those shanties $1 a day. That means they get 90 cents left over to live on. What are you going to do with that? How are you going to get by? It's very difficult to imagine and put yourself in their shoes. Brene Brown says this quote, and I love it, empathy is simply listening, holding space, withholding judgment, emotionally connecting, and communicating that incredibly healing message of, you're not alone. You're not alone. That's what empathy is. To sit with people, and you don't have all the answers, but you want to understand what they're going through and at least remind them that they're not alone. Empathy is the first ingredient. And remember, if you're making compassion pie, you want to put yourself, as the P, in their shoes. Ingredient number 2, after you understand how important it is to put yourself in someone else's shoes, ingredient number 2 is found in this part of the passage, verse 32. When Jesus heard them, he stopped and asked, what do you want me to do for you? Now again, people in Jesus' little crowd are shushing the two blind guys. Quiet, quiet, rebuking them. Just shut up. We want to hear Jesus. And Jesus goes, well, time out. He stops. The whole crowd stops. He goes right over these two guys. We don't have a lot of dialogue except for this. Jesus stops and goes, hey, what do you want me to do for you? What's going on? Now, you think to yourself, he's God. This is God in the flesh, Chris. You said he is. Wouldn't God in the flesh know what these people need? Wouldn't he just look at them and know? I mean, it's pretty easy to figure out they're blind guys. They need some help. We know that Jesus knows it all. We know he's God. Of course he knows what the issue is. But what he's doing here is modeling for you and I how to show compassion. How important it is to stop the busyness, stop even the important things like teaching people, to stop and to ask questions, to investigate what's going on with those who are hurting, to make time for the broken. And that's what he does here. I love how he does this because what he does, he draws a line between curiosity and just assuming. Oftentimes, I think you and I, we hear about horrible situations and we assume. Or we see, people on the side of a road or an off-ramp and they're holding a sign, they need help, and we just assume how they got there. Or we assume what they're going to do with the money. Oh, they're just going to use that money for drugs. They're probably going to get some alcohol and just get wasted. And we assume ourselves right out of actually helping people. We assume ourselves away from showing compassion. And we don't take the time to actually stop and ask the questions and investigate. We must be curious. If we are to show compassion, we must ask questions. What's the problem? How can I help? What's going on? How'd you get here? What do you need? That's what Jesus models for us. Speaking of, and this is ingredient number 2, investigate the issue. After putting yourself in someone else's shoes, the first ingredient, second ingredient for compassion pie is investigating the issue. Speaking of investigating, this past week, my parents came out, and they had a little investigating issue of their own. They came out from California, and we had a great Thanksgiving. It was a lot of fun. But like day 2 into their trip, their ADT alarm system on their phone started triggering, and that something was going on in their house. That the motion sensor kept on tripping and going off. And my dad thought, well, maybe it was a glitch, or maybe, they assumed that maybe it was like a fan blowing too hard, it was blowing some curtains around. But by the second day of it keep tripping, they got worried. So they asked a friend of theirs to go investigate the issue. So she went over and got the hide key out and opened up the door, and she opened up the door, she saw the place was ransacked. Just ransacked. Stuff's all over the ground. Just dirt everywhere. And so she ran out of the house very quickly. She thought that maybe the people were still there. And so she calls 911, and she's on the phone with my dad. And my dad, she's on the phone with, I think my dad's, my mom's phone. My dad has his phone. And he's like this, watching everything go down at the house, trying to see if anybody's there. The cops are there in so quick. And I grew up in Placentia. It's a little town in Orange County. So Placentia PD, woo woo, they show up. Okay, they roll up 3 cars strong, and they got guns blazing. They're all Placentia PD, and we're coming in. And they come in, and we're watching all of this on my dad's phone, like cops. Okay, it's going down. It's awesome. It's all real time. He's got audio also coming in. You can hear them, everything. And also he's on the phone with her friend, and she's like, yeah, they're going inside right now. They're going in. The guns are drawn, and we're all sitting out there going, oh my gosh. My mom is like having just a total wreck. She always thinks that they've been, that this perpetrator's still in there, and how horrible it is to be vandalized this way. My mom's assuming all these things. My dad's assuming things too. My wife and I are like, I don't even know what's going on. We're trying to just kind of like pray it all works out. And then as my dad's watching, the cops are going, and I'm watching it too. The cops are coming around the corner doing this, and they're pushing doors around. Police PD, get down. My dad sees something go across the screen, and he goes, what was that? All of a sudden, it goes, and back again. He said, what was that? And all of a sudden, he's on the phone. So I see something moving. And the friend that's there, what do you see? And all of a sudden, it stops. It looks at the camera. It's a squirrel, okay? So the squirrel, and all of a sudden he goes, it's a squirrel. And she goes, it's a squirrel. Please, it's a squirrel. The cops go, squirrel. And they're hunting this thing down. And it's going by squirrel. And it's going around all the place. What had happened was the squirrel came in through the fireplace, the chimney, and it went try to find any exit, okay? So it went to every window. Well, my mom has tables set by every window with knickknacks and like pictures and stuff, and it just took out everything around the whole house. And it's trying to get out. The poor guy was trying to get out. And the cops are trying to get it, and they get a box. They're trying to, trap it. It jumps in the box. The cop goes, I got it! It jumps out of the box, and then it runs right out of the door. And then they're like, oh, yeah, we got it. So this whole idea, of just they were assuming that it was a perpetrator, that it was like an actual burglar, but really, after you do the investigation, they found out it was only a squirrel. Now, that's good. Thank God for that. You and I, though, when it comes to compassion and showing compassion, we do the opposites, I think. We assume it's a squirrel. We assume that whatever they're dealing with is just a low-level issue. Probably just as simple as they're addicts, Or these people in Kenya, they're just poor. And we simplify it. That's just the issue. That's the problem. And we leave it there, and we don't investigate deeper to find out what's going on. Here at Lincoln Heights, we value launching people into making a difference. So we launched a team a few years back to go and just visit these people. Go right to the heart of the Mathare Valley. And this is a team that we took up there, and this team I was with, it was a great team. Every team we take is a great team. But this team, none of them had a whole lot of experience doing this before. They raised like $3,000 each, a lot of money to raise. Chris, why? It seems like a waste of money. Just give them the money. If you gave $3,000 times that many people, they would have loved that, probably, that missions organization. Wrong. They value us coming and investigating. They value. Because then we don't become Americans who just assume things. We go investigate and learn that these people are real people. They're not just poor people in Kenya. You see the next picture, they didn't just show us around. They took us into the neighborhoods, into the shanties. We would walk down these little moats of sewage right alongside of it. And we would take a left or a right into one of these shanties and sit down with these people in the humble home, guys, we're talking about a 6x6, 8x8, at most. And it was a dirt floor, and you sit there, and we'd all cram in there. Sometimes we do 2 or 3, and we split up. We have an interpreter with us. English is their secondary language, while he's the first one. And we sit down, and what we would do is ask questions like this. What's your name? How long have you been here? Tell me about your kids. Tell me what's going on. What's your biggest joy? What's your biggest challenge? Just ask questions. And in the midst of it, what they're doing is asking us questions about America, about food we eat, and about also Jesus. And we're talking about Jesus, and we're sharing our faith, and we're seeing these people just be people. And all of a sudden, it's easier to put yourself in their shoes, and you realize, I wouldn't want my kids out in this. I would love for there to be some sort of hope. And they're talking about how their kids involved in this MOHI, this Missions of Hope International, how they're involved with the school, and how proud they are of their kids. You know what's so cool, too, is that MOHI, what they do, to sponsor a kid, it costs $38 a month for American or someone outside of Kenya to sponsor a kid. What's so cool about this, guys, is the actual cost is somewhere around $45. They charge the family the other $6, $5. You know why? Chris, that sounds horrible. They don't have the money for that. No, they realize there's more than one type of poverty out there. Poverty isn't just something that comes with dollar signs. There's a poverty of emotional poverty, there's a spiritual poverty, a poverty of feeling that you're not good enough to take care of your own child. Could you imagine that? That you aren't able to do that? So they actually encourage these families, and they have a small charge. It's somewhere between, I think, Jack, it's like $3, $5, somewhere in there. But they have this investment into their child's future to instill in them that they are a part of the solution, not just spectators watching their kids be helped out by some other people. They understand how people work, and I value that. See, you and I, we must investigate the issue. And I love this food for thought quote that comes from H. Jackson Brown. He says, remember that everyone you meet is afraid of something, loves something, and has lost something. Friend, I'm going to add to it. It's your job as a Christian to figure out what that something is. It's your job. To stop assuming. Ask questions. Be curious. Figure out what the issue is. And then move to the next ingredient. After ingredient number 1 is put yourself in someone else's shoes for compassion pie. Ingredient number 2 is to investigate the issue. Ingredient number 3 is found in Matthew 20, verse 34. Jesus, in this short story, he asked, again, the 2 blind men, what do you want? And then we see like it must have been a short dialogue or something, but basically in verse 34, Jesus had compassion on them and touched their eyes. Immediately they received their sight and followed him. What's so cool about Jesus is that he draws a line between warm wishes and getting your hands dirty. Warm wishes and getting your hands dirty. Warm wishes would have been this. Jesus goes, hey guys, what do you guys need? And they go, well, I'm blind. And I want to see. We both do. And, Lord, son of David, would you help us? And Jesus goes, I'm going to think good thoughts right now, positive vibes, and send them your way as I'm walking this way. Okay, because that would be warm wishes. And sometimes we do that as humans. We'll even say in the Christian world, I'll pray for you. I'll pray for you. But we don't do anything. I love this church. I love Lincoln Heights. I love the people here. I love the family that I have here, the community I have here. I went through back surgery about almost 3 months ago, and I was out of commission for 6 weeks healing at home. And I had so many people praying for me, and I thank God for those prayers. They made a huge difference, but they weren't just praying for me. They're also bringing over food and taking care of my family. I had a bunch of friends send over a ginormous fruit basket. It was probably about this big. And you go, Chris, what's the point? It blessed my kids when I couldn't bless them. It took care of them. It did things for me that I couldn't do. What's the point about food, Chris? Why is that important? Well, my wife was a full-time mom, full-time wife, full-time teacher, also became full-time caretaker for me because I'm Mr. Invalid over here, and she couldn't do much. Well, the church stepped up and said, we're going to go ahead and give you cookies. That's all we need, cookies right now, okay? We love them. And the Roosters were taken care of. Thank God for that. And thank you for those that prayed. Thank you for those that gave in other ways too. But I'm telling you what, to be a part of a community that knows the difference between warm wishing and getting your hands dirty, they know Jesus then. Because Jesus goes over these guys, and he could have been like this. Oh, you're blind? Okay, I'm going to do this. Healed, okay? And then he could have healed them that way. He's God. He can do whatever he wants. But he chooses to go over to them and put his hands on their eyes. Ew, okay? Because I had that. I had the eye issue back in 9th grade playing volleyball, and I didn't even want to touch my eyes. They're so gross, okay? And then you got to get your hands dirty to do something like this, and Jesus touches their eyes, which shows to me he's willing to get his hands dirty. Ingredient number 3, after putting yourself in someone else's shoes and investigating the issue, the third ingredient is engage in bringing about a solution. You must engage. Don't just well-wish. Don't just think positive vibes. Don't just pray. If you can do more. Because prayer is powerful, absolutely. I'm not diminishing the power of prayer. But I'm saying, Christian, if you are able to do more, do so. These kids, we went over there and we hung out with them, and we got to see what they are doing in Mohi, Missions Hope International. And we see this picture of these kids coming up next, and these are kids at the school. And these kids, they are part of the center now that exists there. And actually, I remember I told you, Mary and Wallace, they said, hey, let's go ahead and get 50 kids in our kindergarten, and that'll be our goal. We'll see what God does next. That was 20 years ago. Fast forward 20 years, they went from 50 kids to 21,000 kids. Give God a hand for that. That's amazing. That's amazing. 21,000 kids are now being educated, fed, cared for, have medical attention, and also they're being pointed to Jesus on a daily basis. That's amazing. Could you imagine if Wallace and Mary come out and just said, I'm going to pray for you guys. I'm going to pray real hard. I'm going to pray super, super bunch. Thank God for the prayers. Thank God for that heart. But friends, we were meant to do more. We're meant to be the hands and feet of Jesus and to follow his lead, to not just give warm wishes, but to get our hands dirty and say, how can I help? What can I do? And it wasn't just Mary and Wallace doing this. It was a team of people that had just walked with them for 20 years and seen these lives be changed. Friends, I'm telling you, you can be a part of this too. I am. This is my kid. This is one of mine. I have two kids that my wife and I and my family support. This is Orest. Orest and Ryan, we both support. Ryan is actually a 7th grader now, and Ryan's doing great. Orest actually graduated, and if you have kids in the program, the sponsorship program, and they graduate from the program, which is high school, and they go into college, you can still support them in college. And my wife and I have chosen to do that. Orest is top of his class. He's top in his class. This guy's going to be a change maker. And what's so cool about these kids, when you go and ask them what they want to do, because we always do. What do you guys want to do? What do you want to do? You no longer hear this, and I love this. This is what Mary and Wallace tell us. No longer do you hear kids say, I want to grow up and sell oranges. They don't say that anymore. They say, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a pilot. I want to be president. These kids are dreaming big. They've been given hope by Missions of Hope International to see they have value. That there's something bigger than going out there and just making a buck on the side of the road. That they could change the world. I'm telling you, it's happening. And what's so cool about Kenya too is that seeing their poverty, that their poverty has taken huge, it's been going the right way, down, lessening in their country over the last 20 years considerably. Now COVID's going to make it more difficult, but I'm telling you what, things have changed, and I believe God's used Missions of Hope International to bring about that change. Because I'm telling you, you bring hope to a kid's life, hope goes into a family's life, hope goes into a community's life, hope goes into a country's life, and changes people. If you want to support someone, a child, a Mohi, you can do it today. I want to encourage you to consider it. It's $38 a month. I want to encourage you to do it. You can interact with this kid. You can write letters, notes, receive, all that kind of stuff. You can go and visit your kid when we go over there next time, which I have. It's amazing to sit down with these kids and go, they aren't just pictures on a card. They're real people, real kids. And when you see the cards out there, you can see all of these cards on the table of all these kids in school uniforms. You might think, Chris, they're already in school. What Mohi does is this. It's smart. They have a certain part of their budget already reserved to bring kids in. And then once you and I sponsor these kids, then they get sponsored, they move into the next bracket, and they do another sponsorship ahead of time for scholarship money to bring new kids in. And they go by faith, believing that people will sponsor these kids. And if people give up their sponsorships, they never kick a kid out. They live kids in the program. Right now, Lincoln Heights is already supporting 80 kids in that program. We'd like to see that grow and even double this year. Would you consider sponsoring a child? Food for thought on this one, guys, is this. You must live with people to know their problems and live with God in order to solve them. I love that quote from P.T. Forsyth. I love it. Got to live with God and live with people. And so many of us have chosen not to during the time of COVID. I said this last service, I'm going to say it again. Christian, you must be aware of what's happening in our culture. Christian, you must be aware. You have to wake up. I want to be very clear right now on what I believe about this virus. It's a real thing. It makes people sick. It can kill people. It is a real virus. But Christians, do not allow yourself to be lulled into sleep. Do not allow yourself to be boxed in with fear that prevents you from showing compassion. Christian, you were meant to be in community, and you're meant to show compassion to those in your world and around the world. Do not let the fear of COVID prevent you from being the person God's created you to be. You were meant to make a difference. You were meant to care about more people besides just yourself. You were meant to go outside the box, across the line, to go into the danger zone and to reach people for Jesus. You were meant to do that. Now, can you be safe and smart while you do it? Yes. Can you be wise? Sure. But do not get lulled in to our culture's perspective of keeping ourselves safe at the expense of showing compassion to others. Oh, friend, you are meant to make a difference. You can do it more than one way. Sure, you can go ahead and pray, absolutely. But you can give too. And you can travel. You can go to people. That's getting harder and harder right now. So we got to think outside the box. And not allow COVID to box in compassion. Compassion pie, in a nutshell, is this. It's three things. The ingredients are putting yourself in someone else's shoes. The I is investigate the issue. And E is engaging in bringing about a solution. That's what compassion is. Those are the three parts to it. The big point today, if you want a big point, is simply this. You must be compassionate just as your Father is compassionate. Those are the words from Jesus himself. You must be compassionate just as your Father is compassionate. It's from Jesus, a.k.a. the master pie maker. He knows how to make compassion pie, and he serves you and I a dish of it daily. We're not meant to hoard it for ourselves. We're meant to share it with our family, our friends, our neighbors, our coworkers, our world. You are meant to be launched into making a difference. Your challenge today is this. Practice serving up some compassion pie this week to just one family member or friend. This week, just one. Practice. And how you practice is that you put yourself in their shoes, that family member of yours. And you investigate, you ask questions of that friend of yours. Don't assume you know what's going on in their life. And then you engage and bring about a solution. Don't just wish warm feelings on them and positive vibes. Be a part of a solution. And then number two, pick up a food box today. Because people go, Chris, I always talk about Kenya, but we have people here who are hurting. You're right. 1 in 5 kids are hungry in Phoenix. That's not right. And we should take care of that. And what I thought was interesting, too, is that our government stepped up big time and gave food away like crazy during the first part of COVID. Well, that stopped. That stopped. And you know what? I feel bad about that. I also feel good about that. Good. Because you know what? It's not the government's job. It's our job. As Christians. It's our job to provide food. And we have schools across the street, one in particular, Madison Heights. Their kids have 2 weeks off for Christmas break, which is awesome. But they're usually used to getting this food from the government 2 days a week, twice a day. And they're not going to get that. So you know what? We're going to step up at least during this time. Because when they come back to school, they'll get it again. But 2 weeks, they won't have any food. So we asked them, do they need help this year? Because we were told they didn't need help a couple months ago. But now they need help. Guys, they are clamoring for help. So each one of those boxes will feed a family of 4 for 1 week. We're trying to feed a family for 2 weeks. So consider taking a box or two. Inside are all the instructions on how to do it, what to fill it out, and bring it back mid-December. And then we're going to go ahead and deliver it to the schools. And what's so cool is we drop it in front of the principal's office and say, there you go. And there's nothing about Lincoln Heights in there. Nothing about our Christmas services. It's just simply, here's some food to give to your people. You know who gets the glory and all that? Well, immediately, the principal and staff gets all that kind of attention from the families that are receiving the food. But ultimately, we know, and the staff knows too, of the schools, that God gets the glory, not us. Amen? And helping people. Pick up a box. And finally, number 3, decide to sponsor a child through Mohi today. You can do it. $38. And if you've stopped, pick it up again. If you have 2 kids, get 1 more kid. I know for us, we have 4 girls in our family, and it's our goal to get 4 boys that live in Kenya that we support too. So we have 2 we support now. We're going to add 2 more. 2 more. Would you join us and sponsor some more kids? Let's go ahead and pray. God, we love you. God, thank you for being so good Thank you for being so good to all of us. Thank you for showing us compassion. Thank you for showing us those ingredients of just putting yourself in our shoes. God, thank you for investigating the issue, from coming down from heaven to investigate what's going on here and showing that you care. God, thank you for engaging and bringing about a solution, because that's what you did on the cross and through the grave. You didn't just wish warm wishes, God. You didn't just pray for all of us. You did something. God, I thank you for that. I thank you for that example. Help us to live that out in our families, in our friendship circles, in our communities. God, help us to live that out around the world, and even helping out those kids in the Mathari Valley. Lord, please use this church, Lincoln Heights, to make a difference in your name as we join the capital C church around the world that strives to do that every day. God, we need you and we love you. In your name we pray. Amen. Friends, we're going to go into a time of communion. Before I do, I want to say this. We have baptisms today, and we have at least one we know of. We had two last service. And if you want to get baptized today, it can happen. Chris, I didn't bring any clothes. We have a change of clothes back here. We have towels, everything for you. If you want to get baptized today, at this point, during communion, just meet me over here at this door, and we'll walk you back there to get you ready for that. And baptism is an incredible first step in being a follower of Jesus. And it's so amazing. It's that outward expression of an inward decision to say yes to Jesus. So if you want to be baptized, meet me over there. During communion right now, if you're in the room, look down on the ground, and guess what we have for you? New communion cups, okay? They don't taste like poison. They won't make you barf, okay? They're going to be amazing. And they can actually taste like grape juice. So you have the juice and you have the wafer. I will encourage you to take the wafer out first before you take the juice, okay? And the wafer is symbolic of his body broken. The juice is symbolic of his blood spilled. And we're not making light of this because what this is supposed to be really is time to remember. To remember who he is and what he's done. And he died for you on the cross. Take away all of the bad choices, all the sin, all the mistakes that separate you from God. He removed those by what he did on the cross. He's taking all of it upon himself. He's giving you his unblemished state so that you can access God the Father now. Thank Jesus for that. Thank him. And ask him if you have any issues in your life, just ask him to help. Confess to him. Enjoy your time with the Lord and take the communion whenever you like. And if you want to get baptized, meet me over here.